Part 1. The weakling's arrival, Marcus Chen pressed his face against the transport ship's window as Nexus Station came into view. The massive structure spun slowly in space, its metal arms reaching out like a giant wheel. Lights blinked along its surface, and dozens of ships moved around it like busy insects. "First time seeing the station?" asked Captain Torres, the transport pilot. "Yes," Marcus replied, his voice quiet. "It's bigger than I thought." The captain laughed. "Wait until you see the aliens inside. Makes you feel pretty small." Marcus nodded but said nothing. At 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighing only 140 pounds, he already felt small most of the time. His black hair was neat but simple, and his clothes were plain work clothes, not the fancy uniforms that diplomats usually wore. The transport docked with a soft bump. Marcus picked up his single bag and followed the other passengers through the airlock. The moment he stepped into Nexus Station, his eyes went wide. The main corridor was huge, at least 50 feet high. Aliens of all shapes and sizes walked, crawled, and floated past him. Some looked like giant insects, others like walking trees, and some seemed to be made of living crystal. "Marcus Chen?" A deep voice spoke behind him. He turned around and looked. Up, way up. A female alien stood there, almost 8 feet tall. Her skin looked like dark green armor plates, and her arms were thick with muscle. 2 smaller eyes sat above her main eyes, giving her 4 eyes total. "I am Zara of the Zenthari. Military," she said. "I will show you to your quarters." "Thank you," Marcus said, having to tilt his head back to look at her face. As they walked through the station, Marcus noticed other aliens staring at him. A group of 4 armed aliens whispered to each other as he passed. Their skin was silver blue, and they moved with smooth, graceful steps. "Those are Veltar," Zara explained, noticing his look. "They are scientists and artists, very proud of their strength and skill." One of the Veltar females, taller than Marcus by at least a foot, approached them. Her 4 arms moved in elegant patterns as she spoke. "So this is the human representative?" she asked. Her voice was musical but had a questioning tone. "I am Lissa, chief researcher for the Veltar Science Division." "Nice to meet you," Marcus said, offering his hand for a handshake. Lissa looked at his small hand with curiosity. She gently took it with one of her 4 hands. Her grip was careful, like she was afraid she might break him. "Interesting," she said. "Your bone structure seems very light. How do you survive on your home planet with such fragile bodies?" Marcus felt his cheeks get warm. "We manage okay." Zara made a sound that might have been laughter. "Come, let me show you the station facilities." They walked through different sections of the station. In the marketplace, massive aliens lifted heavy cargo containers with ease. In the recreational area, creatures that looked like living rocks played games that involved throwing metal balls that weighed hundreds of pounds. Marcus watched everything with interest, but he noticed how the aliens watched him, too. Some looked curious, others seemed amused, and a few looked concerned, like they were worried he might break just from walking around. "This is the high-gravity section," Zara said as they approached a sealed door. "We train here for missions on heavy gravity. Planets. Would you like to see?" Marcus nodded. The door opened, and immediately he felt the difference. The air seemed thicker, and each step took more effort. "This is only 1.5 times normal gravity," Zara explained, walking normally while Marcus worked harder with each step. "We can go up to 4 times normal gravity for advanced training." A group of young Zenthari females were exercising in the area. They moved easily, lifting weights that would have been impossible for Marcus, even in normal gravity. When they saw him struggling to walk normally, they stopped their workout to stare. "Is that the human?" one asked. "He looks so small," said another. "How does his species fight wars?" A third wondered aloud. Marcus tried to ignore their comments, but his face grew red. He focused on putting one foot in front of the other, determined not to stumble. "Perhaps we should return to normal gravity," Lissa suggested gently. "We do not want our guest to get hurt." "I'm fine," Marcus said, but his breathing was getting harder. They left the high-gravity area, and Marcus felt relief, as the normal weight returned to his body. But he also felt embarrassed. These aliens saw him as weak, and so far, he had given them no reason to think otherwise. "Your quarters are here," Zara said, stopping at a door. "The Federation has adjusted everything for human needs. Lower ceilings, lighter furniture, softer lighting." The room was indeed smaller than the corridors outside, but it still felt large to Marcus. The bed was huge by human standards, and the desk and chairs looked like they were built for someone much bigger than him. "Dinner is in 2 hours," Lisa said. "The dining hall serves food for all species. I am sure you will find something suitable." After they left, Marcus sat on the edge of the bed and looked at his hands. They were small and looked soft compared to the armored hands of the Zenthari or the elegant four-handed limbs of the Veltar. But if someone looked closely, they might see the small scars and calluses that came from years of working with tools and machinery. Marcus had grown up in the deep-sea research stations on Earth, where his father worked as an engineer. The pressure down there was crushing, and the work was dangerous. Later, he had worked in the asteroid mining colonies, where one mistake could mean death in the vacuum of space. But none of the aliens here knew about that. They only saw a small, soft-looking human who seemed weak compared to their impressive physical abilities. Marcus unpacked his few belongings and found his work tools at the bottom of his bag. The wrenches and diagnostic equipment looked tiny compared to the massive tools he had seen the aliens using. But these tools had served him well in some of the most dangerous places humans had ever lived. A soft chime told him it was time for dinner. Marcus stood up and straightened his simple clothes. He would go to the dining hall, meet more aliens, and probably face more questions about human weakness. But Marcus had learned something important during his years in dangerous places. Looking weak and being weak were two very different things. Sometimes being underestimated was the best advantage you could have. He opened his door and walked toward the dining hall, ready to see what other surprises Nexus Station had waiting for him. Part 2. The Impossible Challenge. Marcus had been on Nexus Station for 3 days when the alarms started screaming. He was in the dining hall, carefully eating a meal that the food machines had prepared for human taste. Around him, aliens of all sizes were enjoying their own strange foods. The Zenthari crunched on what looked like metal bars, while the Veltar sipped glowing liquids from 4 cups at once. The alarm sound made everyone freeze. Red lights flashed throughout the dining hall, and a voice spoke in the universal language that all Federation species understood. "Emergency in Fusion Core Section 7. All engineering teams report immediately. This is not a drill." Marcus saw Zara rush into the dining hall, her armor plates clicking as she moved. Her 4 eyes looked worried, something Marcus had never seen before. "What's happening?" asked Lissa, who was sitting at a nearby table with other Veltar scientists. "The main fusion core is failing," Zara said, her deep voice tight with concern. "The magnetic containment field is breaking down. If we cannot fix it in the next 6 hours, the core will explode and destroy half the station." Marcus felt his stomach drop. A fusion core explosion would kill thousands of aliens and destroy years of diplomatic work between species. "How many people are in danger?" he asked. Zara looked down at him, seeming surprised that the small human was asking questions. 12,000 beings live and work on this station. The explosion would be very bad." More aliens rushed past them toward the engineering sections. Marcus saw teams of Zenthari engineers in heavy work suits and groups of Veltar carrying complex tools in their forearms. "Can I help?" Marcus asked. Several aliens nearby turned to look at him. A few made sounds that might have been laughter. "This is not work for delicate beings," said a large Xanthari engineer as he walked past. "Stay in the safe sections, little human." Marcus felt his face get warm, but he followed the crowd toward the engineering area anyway. Zara and Lissa walked beside him, talking in worried voices about the technical problems. The engineering section was chaos. Dozens of aliens worked at computer stations, their faces lit up by flashing warning lights. In the center of the room, a huge display showed the fusion core, a massive ball of energy held in place by invisible magnetic fields. "The containment field is failing in sections 4 through 9, called out a Veltar technician. "We are losing magnetic strength every minute." "Send in Engineering Team Alpha," ordered the station commander, a creature that looked like a giant spider made of crystal. They must realign the magnetic generators manually. Marcus watched as a team of Xanthari engineers, the strongest beings on the station, put on heavy protective suits. These suits were designed to protect against radiation and the crushing gravity near the fusion core. "The core area has 4G gravity," Zara explained to Marcus quietly. 4 times normal weight. Even my people can only work there for short periods before the gravity crushes them." "What about the other species?" Marcus asked. "The Veltar are strong, but not strong enough," Lisa said. "The Orcs could handle the gravity, but their crystal bodies conduct too much radiation from the core. They would die in minutes." On the main screen, they watched as Team Alpha entered the core area. The Xanthari engineers moved slowly, their powerful bodies fighting against the crushing gravity. They reached the first magnetic generator and began, working on it with heavy tools. But after only 10 minutes, the team leader's voice came over the communication system. "We cannot maintain fine motor control in this gravity. The repair work requires delicate adjustments, but our hands shake. Too much under 4G, Marcus frowned. He had worked in high-pressure environments before, but never with gravity this strong. Team Alpha continued working for another 20 minutes before they had to retreat. They had fixed 1 generator, but 8 more needed repairs. At this rate, they would never finish in time. "Send in Team Beta," the commander ordered. The second team lasted only 15 minutes before they also had to retreat. The third team managed 12 minutes. "This is not working," Zara said, her armor plates shifting with worry. "The gravity is too strong, and the work is too delicate. We need steady hands, but the crushing weight makes that impossible." Marcus stepped forward. "What exactly needs to be done?" The spider-like commander looked down at him. "The magnetic generators must be realigned using precision tools. It requires steady hands and careful measurements. But the 4G gravity makes precise work impossible for even our strongest engineers." "I could try," Marcus said quietly. The engineering section went silent. Everyone turned to stare at the small human. Then the laughter started. "You?" said a Xanthari engineer. "Little human, you could barely walk in 1.5G. The 4G gravity in the core area would crush you flat. The radiation alone would kill most humans," added a Veltar scientist. "This is not a joke," Zara said firmly. "If you went in there, we would have to send a team to recover your body." Marcus looked at the display showing the failing fusion core. The magnetic field was getting weaker every minute. Soon, it would collapse completely, and the fusion reaction would become an uncontrolled explosion. "How long do the work teams usually last in there?" he asked. "Our strongest engineers can work for maybe 20 minutes before the gravity becomes too much," the commander replied. "And how long would the complete repairs take?" "At least 2 hours of continuous work," Lisa said. "But no being can survive 4G gravity for that long while doing delicate work." Marcus nodded slowly. He thought about the deep-sea stations where he had grown up. The pressure there was crushing, but humans had learned to work in it. He thought about the asteroid mining colonies, where one wrong move meant death. But miners had learned to keep steady hands even in the most dangerous conditions. "I'd like to try," he said again. Absolutely not, Zara said. I will not watch you die for no reason. It wouldn't be for no reason, Marcus replied. 12,000 lives are at stake. You would be crushed, the commander said. Humans are not built for high gravity. Maybe, Marcus said, but I'm built for something else. I'm built to not give up. The alarms continued screaming, and the fusion core display showed more red warning lights. They were running out of time, and they were running out of options. Marcus looked around the room at all the worried alien faces. These beings were stronger than humans, faster than humans, and smarter than humans in many ways. But there was one thing they didn't understand about his species. Sometimes the smallest person in the room was the only one who could fit through the smallest door. Give me the protective suit, Marcus said. Let me try. Part 3. Endurance Beyond Logic. The protective suit was too big for Marcus. It had been made for Zenthari engineers, so the arms and legs hung loose on his small frame. The helmet felt heavy on his shoulders, and the tool belt wrapped around his waist twice. This is madness, Zara muttered as technicians tried to adjust the suit. The gravity will crush him in minutes. The radiation levels are dangerous even with the suit, Lissa added, checking her readings. His human biology cannot handle this kind of exposure. Marcus stood still while they worked on the suit. Through the helmet's visor, he could see the main display showing the fusion core. More red warning lights appeared every few minutes. The magnetic containment field was failing faster now. Suit pressure is stable, reported a Veltar technician. But the gravity compensators are not working properly. They were designed for much larger bodies. How much will the compensators help? Marcus asked. Maybe 30% reduction in gravity effects, the technician said. You will still feel almost 3G instead of the full 4G. That's still enough to crush a human, the station commander said. His crystal body reflected the flashing emergency lights. I cannot allow this. You don't have any other choice, Marcus said quietly. Your strongest teams can't do the work. Either I try or everyone dies when the core explodes. The commander's multiple eyes studied Marcus for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. Very well, but you must retreat immediately if you feel any problems. We will not lose lives trying to rescue you. Marcus picked up the toolkit they had prepared. For him, the tools were smaller than what the aliens used, designed for precision work rather than heavy lifting. He had requested some modifications based on tools he had used in Earth's deep-sea stations. The first generator is 50 meters from the entrance, Zara explained, pointing at a map. You must recalibrate the magnetic field strength and realign the focusing array. The instructions are programmed into your helmet display. I understand, Marcus said. Remember, Lisa said, our strongest engineers could only work for 20 minutes before the gravity became too much. Do not try to be a hero. Do the work and get out. Marcus nodded and walked toward the entrance to the core area. Behind him, he could hear worried whispers from the aliens watching. He will be dead in 5 minutes, someone said. Poor little human, said another voice. He thinks he can do what our warriors cannot. The entrance door was thick and heavy. As it opened, Marcus felt the change immediately. His body suddenly weighed 3 times more than normal. Each step took real effort, and his breathing became harder, but he kept walking. The corridor leading to the fusion core was long and curved. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls. As Marcus walked deeper into the high-gravity area, he could feel the weight pressing down on him. His legs worked harder with each step. Back in the engineering section, everyone watched his progress on their screens. A camera on his helmet showed what he could see, and sensors in his suit reported his vital signs. His heart rate is elevated, but stable, Lissa reported, watching the medical displays. Breathing is heavy, but not dangerous yet. He is moving too slowly, Zara said. At this rate, it will take him 30 minutes just to reach the first generator. But Marcus kept walking. He had learned something important during his years in Earth's most dangerous places. Panic was the enemy. when the pressure was crushing and the environment was trying to kill you. The only way to survive was to stay calm and keep moving forward. The fusion core chamber was enormous. In the center, a ball of pure energy hung in space, held by invisible magnetic fields. The generators that controlled these fields were arranged in a circle around the core, each one the size of a small building. Marcus reached the first generator and immediately understood why the other teams had failed. The 4G gravity didn't just make you heavy. It made your hands shake with the effort of holding them steady. Every small movement required enormous concentration. He knelt down beside the generator's control panel and opened his toolkit. The alien engineers had been right about one thing. This work required very delicate adjustments. But they had been wrong about something else. Marcus had grown up making delicate adjustments under crushing pressure. In Earth's deep-sea research stations, the water pressure outside was enough to crush a human body instantly. But inside the stations, people lived and worked normally. Marcus had learned to repair sensitive equipment while knowing that one mistake could kill everyone around him. In the asteroid mining colonies, he had maintained life support systems in zero gravity while cosmic radiation tried to cook him alive. He had learned to keep his hands steady when the slightest tremor could mean death. Now, in the crushing 4G gravity of the fusion core, Marcus found himself falling back on those old skills. He breathed slowly and steadily. He moved his hands with careful precision. He ignored the weight pressing down on him and focused only on the work. Back in the engineering section, the aliens watched in growing amazement. "He has been in there for 45 minutes, Zara said, her voice filled with disbelief. "That is twice as long as our best teams." "His vital signs are stable," Lissa reported. "Elevated but not dangerous. How is this possible?" On the screen, they watched Marcus complete the repairs on the first generator. The magnetic field strength indicator changed from red to yellow. 1 down, 8 to go. Marcus stood up slowly and walked to the second generator. His movements were careful but steady. He wasn't moving fast, but he wasn't stopping either. "This makes no sense," said a Zenthari engineer. "He should have collapsed by now. The gravity should be crushing him." But Marcus kept working. He had found his rhythm now. Kneel down, open the panel, make the adjustments, test the results, close the panel, move to the next generator. Each repair took about 20 minutes of careful work. After 2 hours, he had repaired 5 generators. The fusion core was more stable now, but it wasn't safe yet. He needed to fix at least 3 more generators to prevent the explosion. "Marcus," came Zara's voice through his helmet radio. "You need to come out. You have been in there too long. No being can survive this much gravity exposure." "I'm fine," Marcus replied, his voice steady despite his heavy breathing. "Just need to finish a few more." "This is impossible," Lisa whispered, staring at the medical displays. "According to all our data, he should be dead. The gravity should have crushed his bones. The radiation should have killed his cells. But his vital signs are actually getting more stable, not worse." Marcus moved to the 6th generator. His body ached, and every breath took effort, but his hands remained steady. He had discovered something that the aliens didn't understand about: humans. Humans weren't built to be the strongest or the fastest. They were built to endure. They were built to keep going when logic said they should stop. They were built to survive in places where survival should be impossible. And sometimes, that was exactly what the universe needed. Part 4. The Deeper Strength. Marcus had been working in the crushing gravity for 3.5 hours when the worst news came. He was finishing repairs on the 7th generator when Lissa's voice crackled through his helmet radio. Her usual calm tone was gone, replaced by something close to panic. "Marcus, we have a problem. A big problem." Marcus paused his work and looked up at the fusion core. The ball of energy seemed brighter now, more unstable. "What's wrong?" "The 8th generator isn't just broken," Lisa explained. "It's completely dead. But that's not the worst part. The main stabilizer inside the core chamber itself is failing. Someone has to go inside the chamber and manually reset it. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Inside the chamber? How close to the fusion reaction? About 10 meters from the core itself, came the station commander's voice. The radiation levels, there are extreme. Even our best radiation suits would only protect someone for maybe 5 minutes. And how long would the repair take? Marcus asked, though he was afraid of the answer. At least 15 minutes of continuous work, Zara said. Her deep voice was filled with worry. Marcus, no being has ever survived that much radiation exposure. It is a death mission. Marcus looked around the core area. He had repaired 7 of the 9 generators, and the fusion reaction was more stable than before. But if the main stabilizer failed, all his work would be meaningless. The core would still explode, and 12,000 beings would die. Through his helmet visor, he could see the entrance to the inner chamber. It was a small doorway that led directly toward the fusion core. Warning signs in multiple alien languages covered the entrance, all saying the same thing. Lethal radiation, no entry. What happens if nobody fixes the stabilizer? Marcus asked. The core will explode in about 90 minutes, the commander said. All our evacuation plans require at least 3 hours to get everyone to safety. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Around him, the generators hummed with power, but he could hear the difference in their sound. Something was still wrong with the fusion reaction. Marcus, Zara's voice was gentle now. You have done enough. You have done more than any being thought possible. No one will blame you if you come back now. She is right, Lisa added. You have already saved thousands of lives by stabilizing the outer generators. You do not need to throw your life away. Marcus thought about his father, who had worked in Earth's deep-sea stations. His father had always said that being an engineer meant making hard choices. Sometimes you had to risk your life to save others. It wasn't about being brave, it was about doing what needed to be done. I'm going in, Marcus said quietly. No! Zara's voice was sharp. I will not allow it. You can't stop me, Marcus replied. He was already walking toward the inner chamber entrance. I'm the only one small enough to fit through some of the access panels in there, and I'm the only one who's still able to work in this environment. The radiation will kill you, Lisa pleaded. Even if you complete the repairs, you will die from radiation poisoning within hours. Marcus paused at the entrance to the inner chamber. He could feel the heat from the fusion core even through his protective suit. The radiation detectors on his helmet were already showing dangerous levels, and he hadn't even entered the chamber yet. Maybe, he said, but maybe not. Humans are tougher than you think. Before anyone could argue further, Marcus opened the inner chamber door and stepped inside. The heat hit him immediately. Even with the suit's cooling systems running at maximum, he could feel the temperature rising. The radiation levels jumped, so high that his helmet's warning alarms started screaming. But Marcus had learned to work with screaming alarms. In the asteroid mining colonies, alarms were just part of the background noise. What mattered wasn't the alarms. It was staying focused on the job. The inner chamber was smaller than the outer area, and the 4G gravity felt even stronger here. But the worst part was the light. The fusion core blazed like a small sun, forcing Marcus to use the darkest setting on his helmet visor. He found the main stabilizer at the base of the core chamber. It was a complex piece of machinery with dozens of control panels and access ports. Several of the panels had been damaged by radiation, their metal surfaces warped and discolored. Back in the engineering section, every alien watched the screens. Intense silence. Marcus's helmet camera showed them what he was seeing, but the radiation was so intense that the image kept flickering and distorting. His radiation exposure is already at lethal levels, Lisa whispered, her 4 hands trembling, as she watched the medical displays. He should be unconscious by now. Look at his hands, Zara said, pointing at the screen. They are still steady. How is this possible? On the screen, they watched Marcus work with the same careful precision he had shown for the past 4 hours. His movements were slower now, and they could hear his labored breathing through the radio. But his hands didn't shake, and his work remained accurate. 15 minutes, the commander announced. He has been in lethal radiation for 15 minutes, and he is still working. Marcus had opened 3 access panels and was working on the 4th when his suit's cooling system started to fail. The temperature inside his helmet began to rise, and sweat dripped into his eyes. But he kept working. He had discovered something that the aliens couldn't understand. Pain was just information. Radiation was just another environmental hazard. Fear was just a distraction. What mattered was the work, and the people depending on him to finish it. 25 minutes, Lissa reported, her voice barely a whisper. According to our medical knowledge, he should have been dead 10 minutes. Ego. Maybe human medical knowledge is different, Zara said quietly. Marcus finished the repairs on the main stabilizer and activated the reset sequence. Immediately, the fusion core's brightness became steadier, and the dangerous fluctuations in the magnetic field began to smooth out. Core stability is improving, reported a technician. The fusion reaction is stabilizing. Marcus stood up slowly and looked at the fusion core one last time. It no longer looked like an angry, chaotic ball of energy. Now it looked controlled, peaceful, safe. Repairs complete, he said into his radio. His voice was weak but clear. The core is stable. Then Marcus collapsed. Part 5. Respect earned. Bonds forged. Marcus woke up 3 days later in the station's medical bay. The first thing he saw was Zara sitting beside his bed, her 4 eyes watching him with concern. When she realized he was awake, her armor plates shifted in what he had learned was a sign of relief. "You are alive," she said, her deep voice softer than he had ever heard it. "The doctors were not sure you would survive." Marcus tried to sit up but felt dizzy. His body ached in places he didn't know could ache, and his skin felt tender, like he had been sunburned all over. "The radiation?" he asked. "Bad, but not as bad as it should have been," came Lissa's musical voice. She appeared beside Zara, holding a medical tablet in 2 of her 4 hands. "Your human biology handled the exposure better than our computers predicted. You will recover completely." "And the station?" "Safe," Zara said. "The fusion core is stable. 12,000 beings are alive because of you." Marcus nodded and lay back down. He was tired, but it was a good kind of tired, the exhaustion that came after completing important work. Over the next few days, as Marcus recovered, he noticed changes in how the aliens treated him. Before his mission to the core, most aliens had looked at him with pity or amusement. Now they looked at him with something different, respect. Zenthari warriors who had laughed at his small size now nodded respectfully when they passed him in the corridors. Veltar scientists who had questioned his fragile appearance now approached him with genuine curiosity about human capabilities. "I owe you an apology," Zara said during one of her visits to the medical bay. "I thought humans were weak because you are small and soft. I was wrong." "You weren't completely wrong," Marcus replied. "Humans are physically weaker than most species, but we're built for different kinds of strength." Lissa leaned forward with interest. "What do you mean?" Marcus thought for a moment. "Your people are strong because they have thick armor and powerful muscles. The Veltar are strong because they have 4 arms and perfect coordination. But humans are strong because we don't give up. We keep going when logic says we should stop." "The doctors ran tests while you were unconscious," Lisa said. "Your body showed adaptations we have never seen. Your heart rate slowed to conserve energy. Your muscles became more efficient under stress. Your brain released chemicals that helped you ignore pain and fear." "It's called adrenaline," Marcus said. "All humans have it. When we face danger, our bodies change to help us survive." "But it is more than that," Zara said. I have seen warriors with chemical enhancements. What you did was different. You chose to continue working even when your body was failing. That is not chemistry. That is will. When Marcus was finally released from the medical bay, he found that his life on the station had changed completely. Instead of being assigned to simple diplomatic duties, he was asked to join the engineering teams. Instead of being given easy tasks, aliens brought him their most difficult problems. "We have a mining operation on a high-gravity planet," explained Commander Torsk, a massive Zenthari engineer. "Our teams can only work there for short periods before the gravity becomes too much. But if humans can handle 4G gravity for hours, I'd be happy to help design better work rotations," Marcus said. The Veltar scientists were equally interested in human capabilities. Lisa brought him to their research labs, where they studied how different species adapted to extreme environments. "We want to understand human endurance," she explained. "Not to copy it, but to learn from it. Perhaps we can help other species develop similar mental strength." Marcus found himself teaching classes to mixed groups of aliens. He showed them techniques he had learned in Earth's most dangerous places: how to stay calm under pressure, how to maintain focus when everything seemed hopeless, how to keep working when your body wanted to quit. "The secret isn't being fearless," he explained to a group of young Zenthari engineers. "Fear is useful. It keeps you alert and careful. The secret is not letting fear control your decisions." The alien females who had once pitied him now sought his advice on difficult projects. When the station faced other emergencies, a life support failure in the residential sections, a navigation computer breakdown during a critical supply mission, the first question asked was always the same: "Where is Marcus?" But the biggest change came 6 weeks after the fusion core incident. Marcus was in his quarters when his door chimed. He opened it to find Zara and Lissa standing outside, but they weren't alone. Behind them stood a group of young aliens: Zenthari, Veltar, Orcs, and several other species. "We have a request," Zara said. "These young engineers want to learn human-style persistence techniques. They want you to train them." Marcus looked at the group of eager young faces. Some of these aliens were twice his size and could have easily broken him in half, but they were looking at him like students looking at a teacher. "I'm not sure what I can teach you that you don't already know," Marcus said. "You can teach us how to be human," said a young Zenthari female. "Not physically, but mentally. You can teach us how to never give up." Over the following months, Marcus developed a training program unlike anything the Federation had ever seen. It wasn't about physical strength or technical skills. It was about mental endurance, about pushing through barriers that seemed impossible to cross. The program became famous throughout the Federation. Young engineers from dozens of species came to Nexus Station to learn from the small human who had survived the impossible. But Marcus's favorite part of his new life was the friendships he had formed. Zara often joined him for meals, sharing stories of Zenthari military culture and asking about Earth's history. Lisa became his research partner, studying how different species could learn from each other's strengths. "You know," Zara said one day as they watched a group of mixed-species trainees working together on a difficult engineering problem, "when you first arrived, I thought you were the weakest being I had ever met." "And now?" Marcus asked. Zara's armor plates shifted, and what he had learned was her version of a smile. "Now I think you might be the strongest, just not in the way we expected." Marcus watched his students working together, Zenthari strength combined with Veltar precision, guided by human persistence. They were solving problems that no single species could handle alone. "Maybe that's the real strength," Marcus said, "not being the biggest or the fastest or the smartest, but being able to bring out the best in others even when they think you're too small to matter." In the distance, the fusion core hummed quietly, stable and safe. And Marcus Chen, the small human engineer who had once been pitied for his weakness, smiled as he watched a new generation of aliens learning that true strength came in many different forms. Sometimes the greatest victories came not from being the strongest person in the room, but from being the one who refused to give up when everyone else had lost hope.